Welcome. This presentation covers word processing, Module 2, editing and formatting documents. In this presentation, we'll be discussing the following items that will be discussed in several PowerPoint presentations and then practiced through the assignments that go with Module 2. So let's start with the interface. Again, you're getting comfortable with the title bar in blue. The document 1 is the default file name, and we're at the default home tab with the ribbon showing the clipboard group, font group, paragraph group, and so forth. In the quick access toolbar, you may have updated yours to not just have the default setting, which is the save, undo, and redo. You may have customized it to features that you'd like to have handy. First thing we're going to do is work with line spacing. So the default line spacing, years ago, it used to just be single space. So now the default spacing is 1.08, meaning there's more space between each of the lines. And then once you press enter at the end of a paragraph, you also have not only the 1.08 spacing, but after a paragraph spacing of 0.8. So you have more space between the paragraph. So this one is in single space, and you can kind of tell that it ends just slightly shorter than the default setting. And the last one is set for double spacing. You usually use those double spacing for essays or research papers. So to change the line spacing, you'll notice that in Word there's always more than one way to do something. In this one, you would click, this is called line spacing and paragraph, and when you select it, the default is the 1.08, but you could change it to single or 1.15 or 1.5, 2, 2.5, or 3. Or you could go into more line spacing options. This is the spacing before a paragraph and after. So if you wanted to remove that 0.8, you could remove the paragraph spacing after. There are also, like I said, more than one way to select the line spacing. You could click next to the paragraph, that little dialog box. It's behind this drop down, and you could select that, or again, line spacing options. Or if you knew you wanted double spacing, you could select your entire document, Control A, and to set it for double spacing, Control 2 will put it all in double space. Control 1 would put it in single space, everything. Control 2 is double. And there is no Control 3. It's actually Control 5 for 1.5. So it's Control 2, Control 1, or Control 5. So the line spacing we just talked about, and now we're talking about not only the line spacing within the paragraph, but also with the paragraph, which is called before and after paragraph spacing. So the general rule is to use 12-point text. Right now the default setting is 11, but you could change that if you wanted to. You could also choose an exact spacing if you wanted to, in points or inches. Or you could have multiple if you wanted it 1.2 or 1.5, which was 1.5. You could actually choose an exact line spacing of your own choice. So here's the paragraph dialog box launcher. If you clicked in the home tab in the paragraph group, that little diagonal arrow, alignment left means everything's at the left side of the screen. These are if you had anything indented, if you had a special tab. This is the line spacing. Did you want it in points or in inches or lines? And then you could select from the drop-down menu or change it to exactly what you want. This is the spacing before and after a paragraph. And the 8 points is default setting, and that's at the end of a paragraph. And you could change that to 0. In here is a preview of what the line spacing would look like that you're adjusting to the text. So paragraph spacing, you could, again, in here, just triple click and you would select the entire paragraph, and then you could go into your line and spacing dropdown or into the dialog box and change the spacing just to that paragraph. You could also right click and choose paragraph instead of going up into the ribbon. And this is the dropdown, or you could click the little dialog box that's behind here. Or you could right click and select paragraph and change your spacing there. This is the before and after. It usually goes in increments of 6, 12, 18, but you could actually type in a specific number as well. And there's your preview. Text alignment. The default setting is everything is typed at the left edge of the paper. If you're typing a paragraph, it would, whatever doesn't fit at the end would automatically wrap to the next line. But when you press enter after every line, it goes back to the left edge. If you wanted the title for rent center, you would just click this one here, center. So let me just go back. This shows everything left align, and this one, everything, all of the lines with the address and so forth, by clicking center. So this is the default setting. It's in the paragraph group. Left align, you could choose center, or you right align, so everything's at the right edge. And justified, it wouldn't show for this, but if a paragraph had you had a paragraph several lines long, it would make it both even on the left and perfectly even on the right, like you would see in a newspaper or in magazines. Perfect aligned margins. There are shortcuts too. Right align is Control, or left align is Control L. Center is Control E. It's not Center Control C because Control C is copy. So center is Control E. Right align is Control R, and justify is Control J. And again, you could get more options if you click the dialog box launcher here, or you could do it quickly from within the ribbon. So here's your choices in the ribbon: left, center, right, and justified. From the layout, you could change the if you wanted something indented from the left or the right. This is your before and after, and that's only spacing of paragraphs. And here's a sample if you had chose this dialog box launcher. It's set at justified. See, it's justified, and it shows you here it's justified. There's a first line tab, so you can see the lines are first lines are tabbed in. No spacing before or after, and it's set for double line spacing. Indents and tabs. So the first line is tabbed in, so it's got a first line indent. And if you notice in the ruler, this is the ruler that's been turned on, there is an upside down triangle that's showing that it's been tabbed in, and then the following lines go back at the left margin. This one is reverse, where it's the first line is at the margin, and all the remaining lines are what's called a hanging indent. And this is used for works cited. The first line is at the margin, and any other lines 2, 3, and so forth would be indented a ½ inch, which is a hanging indent. So this is the margin. It's got that 1 inch marker here for the blank space on the left side. You'd have right side also 1 inch. And then this is a ½ inch where your tab is, and then you're in an inch. So usually tabs are a ½ inch. So to set a tab, you could go to the beginning of where you want it to be placed, and then just by pressing the tab key on the keyboard, it'll automatically bring this line in a ½ inch. So it would bring this marker, first line indent, to right here in the ruler. You don't have to drag that over. Just by pressing the tab key, it'll create a first line indent and move it in a ½ inch. If you press the tab key a second time, it would bring it to an inch. So it goes in increments of inch and ½ inch. So every ½ inch. So here's the sample of the first line indent, and the marker has been moved. Again, if you couldn't see this ruler, if you click on the tabs, view, and then just check ruler so that you can see the first line indent. If I had clicked over here in this paragraph, this marker would be back over here because it is not tabbed in. So this is the indent markers. The top, there's 3 pieces to it. The top portion is called the first line indent marker. The bottom portion of it, the triangle, is the hanging indent marker. So you're actually moving both the bottom triangle and the box under it. Left indent moves both. So everything's at the left edge, and if you drag all of the indent marker, those 3 lines, everything gets indented. You could also, if you wanted these items underneath skills to be indented, instead of pressing tab for each line, or instead of moving the marker here, all you do is select the text and click this, which is increase indent, and it'll do it automatically. Or you could bring it back by choosing decrease. Using tabs gives you control of the placement, especially if you're creating a list on your screen. You would want it to be neatly showcased on your document, and to have things aligned evenly, you would set tabs. An example here would be for your resume, if you were typing in the place that you worked, and then you wanted the dates that you worked there right aligned, so they're even at the right margin, you would set a right tab. And we'll go into setting tabs shortly. So over on the left corner of your screen, where you have your ruler, this is your horizontal ruler, and this is your vertical ruler. Above it is your tab selector. The default tab selector is left tab. Usually you always set a left tab. But if you click on this icon, it changes to all the tab sets that are available. So there's a left tab, and there's a sample of it. Center tab, it's like an upside down capital T. Right tab, decimal tab has a little dot on it. A bar tab. First line indent, hanging indent, and then there's also, that's not showing here, is what's called a bar tab. And we're going to go over all of these through a practice exercise when we do our assignments. So you'll get to use all of these different tab features. So to add a tab, make sure you select what type of tab you want first. You want a left tab, a center tab, a right tab. Change that first to it's selected. And then right on the ruler, so I want it at 5.5, you just click. And because you set it to be a right tab, when you click here, it's showcasing the right tab. So you can see this is the sample I showed you. So it's at 5.5. That's when you just clicked it right there. And there it is on your ruler. And then you can see that the dates are aligned perfectly on the right tab. Now let's say you decided I wanted to stretch it out to the 6-inch marker. You would select this text and just gradually move this to where you wanted, and it would adjust all of your text to the new location. To remove a tab, just on that right tab that's at 5.5, just hold and just drag it off, and it just falls off. It goes away immediately. So you just hold with your left mouse and just drag it off, and that'll clear it. There's another way you can clear it, and I'll go over that later on. I'm going to stop here and continue with part 2